Trick or treat, Shat The Movies listeners. As we kick off this spooktacular, I'm asking one last time for you to generously open up your change purse and donate a couple of bucks to the Arizona Animal Welfare League Walk to Save Animals. It's a walk that I'll be doing November 2nd, and we could really use your support. Just a couple of dollars to support Arizona's oldest no-kill shelter. It's where I adopted Juniper, and they do a lot of great work. The correct URL for that is support.aawl.org/Gene Lyons, all one word. Thank you so much for taking the time, and have a happy Halloween.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, and this is the podcast for you, I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Happy Halloween.
And each week we take a look back in time to decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you like some of the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share it with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV. Review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, if you'd like to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
Gene, I can tell what time of year it is. A little chill in the air. It's a cold night down here in Florida. You're starting to see the decorations pop up. There's pumpkins on some doorsteps. So you know it has to be the Shat Spooktacular. Back again for another year. And we're excited this year because one of our great listeners from across the pond, Rob T., wrote in. So tonight will be his commission, followed by next week's. And tonight follows with a trend we've been doing lately. We're going to go back to high school again. But it'll be a little different. The bullies will be a little more sadistic. We have some new things to deal with, a religious domineering mom, some telekinetic powers, and we're going to see if we can fit in, find love, and not burn the whole school down. So it's got to be one movie, the 1976 Stephen King horror classic, Carrie. And Rob T. was wonderful enough to leave us a voicemail because we love to hear his accent and his smooth delivery. So let's hear in his own words why this wonderful film is perfect for this holiday season.
Hey Shat Crew, Rob Will Taylor here, back in rude health and with 3 commissions for 2024. First off for spooky season is one of the first films I ever saw at 4 years old, Carrie. On a previous commission, American Werewolf in London, I mentioned that back then they would give us horror tapes to test out our old Betamax systems, and this was another one that they would give us. My dad was always great at explaining that films weren't real. I'd be scared, but they weren't real, so I'd always be okay. But this one had me equally fascinated because of the cover and horrified at that moment. Those eyes still get me today. Carrie is one that started my love of film, Brian De Palma, and of course Stephen King. Finding out there was a book a few years later and really devouring it helped with my reading. And those other Brian De Palma films like Blowout, Dressed to Kill, and my all-time favourite, Phantom of the Paradise, one I hope to commission one day, really made me stand out at my folks' parties, not only for seeing the films I shouldn't have, but really for understanding them, and especially things like Dressed to Kill. Looking forward to the Shat take on this classic that started so many careers, genres and tropes. I'll be back soon with another spooky season classic and an underrated sci-fi Sean Connery mashup that really is must see. So speak to you soon.
I really love that Rob decided to essentially sponsor this spooky season because we've been writing back and forth on Discord. He was asking what I thought of his commissions, and I wrote back so many boobs, and we couldn't decide which movie I was talking about. He thought I was talking about Halloween 2. I was talking about Carrie. Rob really came in with some goofier horror movies, I think, earlier on. And this one is perhaps the most serious that he's brought to us. It's a chance in my book for Stephen King to redeem himself, getting back to the early years and something that maybe has a little more meat on the bones.
Well, I'm hoping the same, because we've been a little critical of his books and the adaptations. So I think it'll be good to go back to the beginning and see like the distilled, the raw Stephen King, what he started with, what made him popular.
Well, as Rob mentioned, Carrie is a 1976 supernatural horror directed by Brian De Palma from a screenplay written by Lawrence D. Cohen, adapted from Stephen King's 1974 novel of the same name. The film stars Sissy Spacek as Carrie White, a shy teenage girl who is constantly mocked and bullied at her school. She later develops the power of telekinesis and uses it to wreak vengeance on her tormentors. The film also features Piper Laurie, Amy Irving, Nancy Allen, William Catt, PJ Soles, Betty Buckley, and John Travolta in supporting roles. It is a first film in the Carrie franchise. The film is the first of more than 100 film and television productions adapted from or based on the published works of Stephen King. Theatrically released on November 3rd, 1976 by United Artists, Carrie became critically and commercially successful, grossing over $33 million against its $1.8 million budget. It received 2 nominations at the 49th Academy Awards, Best Actress for Sissy Spacek and Best Supporting Actress for Piper Laurie. In 2008, Carrie was ranked 86th on Empire's list of the 500 greatest movies of all time. That's greatest movies of all time, not just horror movies, greatest movies of all time. It was ranked 15th on Entertainment Weekly's list of the 50 best high school movies. We've been there before. And 46th on the American Film Institute's 100 Years, 100 Thrills. The film's prom scene has had a major influence on pop culture and was ranked 8th on Bravo's 2004 program, The 100 Scariest Movie Moments. So Big D, Rob has told us his background with this film, Carrie. Where were you when you first saw it, and what are your memories?
So we're going back into the early 70s. We've had a couple of movies that were earlier than this. I obviously did not see this when it came out. I'm not that old. I was 3 when it was released in the theater. So the earliest possible time I could have seen this, or at least parts of it, were probably HBO in the early 80s. But I honestly don't remember much of the movie growing up. Only later on when I became more a fan of like the Stephen King books, because we were flooded in the late 80s and the 90s with the TVs, the miniseries, the books. He started writing under pseudonym, so it was a big time for Stephen King. You can feel Stephen King all over this, even though it's the beginning. It was his first novel. You feel Stephen King, but it wasn't so supernatural. Maybe because that's, he had to get his first book out. So you give a little bit of the supernatural, but it's basically, if you take the prom scene and a couple of the moments where she's learning her powers, this is a coming of age, teenage, high school film. So I wasn't big into it. But when I did see that prom scene, that's memorable. The rest of the movie pales in comparison. So I have to agree. That is one of the greatest horror moments in cinematic history. So that's my experience.
It's basically Dazed and Confused with the spooky soundtrack.
And some murders.
And some murders.
Revenge, yeah. And the religious mother and the little shrine under the stairs. They're close.
Well, Big D, this is one of those embarrassing moments where I have to admit I had seen parts of The Rage. That's Carrie 2, for those of you who are not scholars of the Carrie's franchise. But I had not seen the original. And I was really worried going into yet another Stephen King adaptation. I mean, I trust Rob's taste. I trust, my many, many friends who've said this is a fantastic movie. But me with Stephen King, I had my reservations. I have to say, after seeing it, this one is so different from the rest. I think part of that is because it was fresh. And I think part of it was De Palma. I mean, he's just a very skilled director, and that came through in this film.
And Gene, a lot of times we find common themes and threads throughout the movies we do. In some research of this, a lot of Betty Blue came out. This was Stephen's first novel. He was writing, didn't like it, threw it out. His wife went into the trash can, pulled the pages out, and said, "I think this story is good. You got to go with it." So she motivated him to continue writing. At that time, he was a janitor. His wife, Tabitha, she is another famous writer like he is. He was a janitor in a high school at the time. He was going through the girls' locker room and found the pile of tampons, and somehow that led him down the path to what eventually led to Carrie and a career going now on 50 years of making people uneasy, nervous, and in some cases very scared.
And that's why they call him Tampon Steve. Let's hit the trailer.
It's the night of the senior prom. The Bates High School gym is alive with excitement. Everybody is there, even Carrie White, the girl no one likes.
We're all sorry about this incident, Cassie.
It's Carrie!
And everyone makes fun of her.
Free Carrie!
The girl who lives in that creepy house with her crazy mother.
Help the sinning woman see the sin of her days and ways. Show her that if she had remained sinless, the curse of blood would never have come on her.
The girl with the strange power.
If I concentrate hard enough, I can move things.
But tonight, no one will laugh at Carrie.
If you don't have a date for the prom next Friday, would you like to go with me?
She's with the best-looking boy in the senior class.
He's trying to trick me again.
She'll be voted queen of the prom.
You know, I can make sure that you don't hurt Carrie White anymore.
For Carrie, it will be a dream come true. For everyone else, it will be a nightmare. Carrie. A new film by Brian De Palma. Based on the chilling bestseller. Starring Sissy Spacek, Piper Laurie, and introducing John Travolta in his first motion picture role. If you have a taste for terror, you have a date with Carrie.
Carrie White is a shy teenage girl who lives with her fanatically religious mother, Margaret. When Carrie experiences her first period while in the locker room, she panics, having never been told about menstruation. Her classmates laugh at her, throwing tampons and sanitary pads at her until the gym teacher, Miss Collins, intervenes. Margaret tells Carrie that her period was caused by sin, and she locks Carrie in a prayer closet. At school, Miss Collins reprimands Carrie's tormentors, punishing them with exercise detention. Carrie's longtime bully, Chris Hargensen, refuses to exercise and gets banned from the prom.
Exercise detention. We have to add that to my list of things that, did you have exercise detention?
I never had exercise detention. No, detention was heads on the table, or at most you got to like a pencil and a piece of paper and nothing else to do. You couldn't even bring a book. That's about as bad as it got. Exercise detention, while sexy, does not seem like a lot of fun. But
it's effective. It got 99% of these kids in line. And right off the bat, Gene, we're going back to another common theme. We've been doing shower scenes lately. We've had a couple films here where we're talking about nudity and the shower scenes, but Carrie, it's a little bit different. In the 80s, most shower scenes were usually the women. Like either you had Porky's where people were trying to peek on them, or they were giggling, they were frolicking and laughing and running around. It was meant to be sexy, but here the actresses, they seem very young. It's a very innocent take on the shower scene, but there still is this like bit of ickiness to it. And Brian De Palma, it says, directed by Brian De Palma. And his choices were a bit, I don't want to say, they felt a bit weird, right? So they've had this volleyball game where I've never seen kids take like gym class volleyball so serious. They're dedicated to it. They're like, you suck, Carrie. Boom, into shower scene. It is a slow motion scene set to like a flowery tune, almost like it sounds like a child's like out playing. There's slow motion. Girls in the shower, girls walking around naked. Carrie, we're introduced to her. It's slow motion, close up, and it gets very intimate. Slow motion on her breasts. She's soaping up her thighs, Gene. There's a close up on the shower sprayer, which is very phallic. and it's shooting out water at her. She opens her mouth, and then she lifts her leg, very suggestive. She goes down, she starts washing her crotch. I don't think I'm seeing too much in here, but she drops the soap, then she gets her period. This one is a bit different than what we've had recently.
How the pendulum swings, Big D. We went from erotic fish in A Fish Called Wanda to I don't see anything weird in just one of the guys where the high school girl has her butt out and her titties out. Now we're back to I'm weirded out by girls in the shower.
Well, what I'm weirded out, I think it's the music choice. First, it's slow motion because normally you get the kids talking like, "Oh, what are you going to do today?" And it breaks up, so it's not so much as you're just observing. But Gene, the theme is played here. It's called Pinot di Maggio. So I'm going to play a little bit here. Okay, now slow motion. The girls are walking through. There's a little jiggling. This is not erotic. This is not funny. This is explorative. This is someone running through a field of flowers, learning about their body. It's weird, set to slow motion. Teens, there's no giggling. There's no, Gene, this sets the scene in a different light. I'll let you answer over this beautiful song.
What's it called?
It's called Pinot di Maggio, the Carrie theme.
Isn't that what you were drinking at the karate tournament?
It was. But listen to this thing. Hold on. This is where it gets to the most. We add some like a cello. I think there's a flute. Just give me 1 second. It's going to hit a crescendo. And this is where Carrie comes in. She's nervous. She's shy. Her body. She's standing. She comes out of the steam, and she's soaping up. This is what did it for me.
So that's called establishing a mood. And they do that sometimes in movies to then throw you off. And so I think what we're supposed to be is in this dream state of youth and purity and innocence.
Okay.
And then it's shattered by sin, the sin of blood.
I like it.
I was just so curious about the need to shower because having played football and done 2-a-days in Arizona, I could see where, you got to go hit the showers, right? Like before you go to class. That's disgusting to be in class like that. But I don't think ever in PE, I don't think I ever worked to the point that I needed a shower afterward. You just change your clothes.
No, the other girl tells her to eat shit. You lost PE volleyball. This isn't an Olympic qualifier. I was a little shocked, a little violent, but hey, maybe they take PE more serious where they're from.
I appreciated the setup. And from the moment Carrie had her first freak out in the showers, I knew we were in for a treat because Sissy Spacek, she is perfect. I have never seen anybody portray the terror of being socially overwhelmed the way she does. Think about it. We've seen so many movies, so many Christian Slater movies in particular, where a teen is being overwhelmed by all the pressure put on them or not fitting in or whatever, or something that was really embarrassing. How many times have we done an 80s movie that focused on a person being embarrassed at school? But it was nothing like this. And her physical reaction, it makes you feel for her. But also, like Rob said, those eyes, you're kind of afraid of her. She looks a little freaky. And she can make herself so tiny when she's crouched down in a corner and just with her small frame. But she can also make herself so big when she freaks out and overreacts and goes reaching for the other students. And it made me immediately want to watch more of her movies. I feel like she's an underappreciated star that I just have not studied.
The casting is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And the movie hinges on this, on her performance. She checks all the boxes. You're right. She's somehow dangerous, but at the same moment, she's damaged and fragile and nervous and impressionable. Yet at the same time, she's very normal. Under the circumstance, you would experience a little embarrassment. And I think it's perfect. And when she first comes out there, I didn't know the backstory. So she's like, the blood. And if you're one of the other kids, you're like, what the hell is she doing? She's grabbing at people and she's spreading blood all over them. And it all seems so relatable once you see what created her and you start to feel pity for her. And all of this is encompassed in this moment that you see her at her most vulnerable. And it's hard when you watch movies like this. With realistic child abuse or kids being put in situations that are painful. My mother used to say, I can't watch that film because it makes kids sad or because the kids would get hurt. And I would laugh at her. I said, that's ridiculous. I said, it's a movie. It's not real. But here I'm in the same boat. As a father, I feel the exact same way. Carrie comes home. She's had her period. Everybody at school is as much 70 supportive as you can. The principal's like, Casey, what are we going to do? She's like, it's Carrie. She goes home. There's no sports school. Then there's mom. So we get to meet mom. And mom is, besides being very religious, she is not very sensitive. She loses it on her. Instead of saying, hey, this is a big moment. You've become a woman. She immediately starts forcing her to read the Bible, and she's condemning her, saying that she's bleeding because it's a penalty because of women's lust. And she sticks her under the stairs with that creepy Jesus doll with all the arrows out of him. Considering the end, which is very violent, it's the most memorable. These moments were the hardest for me to watch, and it was just this little fragile girl being beaten down, be like, Mama, why didn't you tell me the truth, Mama? Why didn't you? And I'm like, yes, tell her.
If you go watching this movie and you're looking for the Jesus doll with the arrows in it, you're going to want to write a letter to Big D and say, oh, the arrows are what got your attention, not the giant googly eyes? What the fuck was that all about?
I think
is
the
this
budget,
a thing? Like, I didn't grow up Catholic or anything. Is there a sect of Christianity that has giant googly eyes on their Jesus?
See, I thought they were trying to make them look like they were glowing. And the residual effect was the googly-eyed Jesus, or it looked like, the Bratz, the girls' dolls with the giant eyes. Maybe this is the Bratz version of crucified Jesus.
He brushes hair with a little brush. It's beautiful. But no, Big D, I mean, this did make me so grateful for my childhood. And I cannot stress how much I appreciate what my mom did for me. Because, yeah, I went to Sunday school, but there was no abuse. There was no trauma. There was no forced beliefs. I was free to believe whatever I wanted. Like, she tried to guide me for sure. But if I said I don't believe in that, I wasn't getting smacked in the head. If I bled out of my asshole or got a boner, I wasn't going to be stuck under the closet, And I think about this a lot when I interact with people in the world, like particularly at work. Like those dumb fucks at work. You're like, God, you have children. Like you weirdo. Like the kids have to live under you, right? You get to set the rules. You got to tell them what to believe, and they can't escape. They're dependent on you. I can't stand these people for like 5 minutes, and their kids have to live by their rules 18 years.
I mean, because kids will believe anything. They believe that I got to whisper here because Emma's out there, that a big fat guy comes down the chimney with presents and does this around the world. They won't question what you say. And you think about those kids who are out there like protesting. What are they? The something Baptists, the one that are out there like protesting soldiers' funerals. They don't know. Kids don't know. And you should never push your religion on people. And it bothers me. I respect your opinion, whatever you want to do, right? Let your kids find their way into it. And also don't tell me, hey, let's go. I hope that Jesus finds you. Well, let's pray for Jesus. Or they're going to tell me that my pimples are the way that the Lord is chastising me. No, I just need to wash my face better. Or when athletes, Gene, when they're like, oh, I want to thank God for this big win. What God in any religion is up there like, oh, there's no tornadoes or no hurricanes today, no genocide. I really got to sit down and watch that college football game. Do they really think like God is out there pulling favorites and that the win was based on who prayed more? That what kind of God would that be?
Yeah, recently I've been getting a little bit more into NFL and college football. Like I was very into it for a while, and then I wasn't for a while, and now I'm kind of getting back into it like casually. And so taking that break and watching the way the game has changed, there's guys, especially like on Ohio State, making a lot of these one-handed catches. That's God. That's God's work, dude. There's no way a human has the power to catch a ball one-handed like that in like double coverage.
No, it's technology. It's that new glove technology and stick 'em. That's it. Jerry Rice used to use it. He came out. He admitted it. Now, God might help. Maybe God developed the sticky glove. But the catch is very man-made. It's science, Shane.
I don't know, man. Even at my level, like there's guys that I have to spar in Muay Thai or people that roll in Jiu-Jitsu, and there's no way that they're that much better than me without God helping them. Like as the atheist, I'm at a disadvantage. I've seen things, Big D. I'm convinced.
You got to pray more. I got to put you under the stairs. Pray to the Krav Maga god.
Yeah, when I'm getting the shit choked out of me, I pray quite a bit. But I wasn't around in the 70s. But talking about change over the years, like the impression that Carrie gave me is people must have just been much more open to this shit or like polite about it, right? I mean, think about like I don't even answer the door for anybody anymore. Imagine like there's a Bible thumper. She's coming. You see her coming, and you're just like, yeah, I gotta let her in, and I'm gonna offer a couple bucks. I'm gonna patiently listen to her. And I think the standard now, like in 2024, is if there's a Mormon missionary or like a Jehovah's Witness, like you're like, yeah, kick rocks, like, or don't answer the door at all, right? Maybe get on your Ring doorbell. No, thank you. I think that's the social standard now. And apologies to any of our like religious listeners out there, okay? But personally, I think if a neighbor or a friend or a family member comes into my home and starts preaching, it should be the norm to treat them like they have mental illness, right? Like treat them as if they came over and told you that they like saw somebody in their closet or that clouds were talking to them.
I think it's very supernatural. It's a very personal thing. When people describe miracles that they haven't, I agree. I think you should keep those to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, just keep them to yourself. Because otherwise I feel obligated to be like, and play along. We occasionally get people who knock on the door. It's a group of Spanish ladies who are looking for Vanessa. And I see them with the Bibles and they come up and they're like, hola. And I'm like, don't speak Spanish. Sorry. and then they shuffle off. But yeah, it's, I guess it's recruitment. You got to do it, but just don't come to me.
You can't let them get to her because then she'll stop doing the freaky shit. Plotting vengeance against Carrie, Chris and her boyfriend Billy Nolan drain pig's blood into a bucket, which they place above the school stage in the gym. Meanwhile, a remorseful classmate named Sue Snell asks her handsome and popular boyfriend Tommy Ross to invite Carrie to prom. Carrie believes the proposition is a prank, but Tommy insists it is genuine. Carrie discovers she has telekinesis, giving her the upper hand on her mother. Despite Margaret's protests, Carrie prepares for prom. Margaret sees Carrie's telekinetic powers and denounces her as a witch.
You got a lot going on there, Gene. Keep in mind, people, this is like an hour and 30 minutes. So we have to get going. You got everything in here. You got setting up the high school. You got setting up the prank. You got setting up the mom, the date to the prom. You got everything going on here. And it is happening fast. And the one thing that we don't waste any time with is the development of the powers, the origin. And I'm for it. I don't care. We meet Carrie. She realizes in these moments, hey, I think I have something going on. However, we don't see her. She's other than the library where she researches, hey, people have telekinetic abilities. All right, great. She goes with it. She's exploring the limits of her powers. She starts out small. She's slamming windows. She's flipping over like ashtrays. She's making the lights flicker. And she's doing this in public. People are seeing it. They should be like, hey, it's kind of weird. Carrie's got something going on. And the mom is this religious zealot. She's used to supernatural displays, Gene. She's looking up at the sky, at the clouds, and she's seeing things. She should have turned this into divine intervention. She should have, her immediate thought should have been like, wow, this is a gift from God. Carrie has some ability. She's like an angel. Or she should have thought, holy shit, this is getting scary. I got to back off. Because it goes real quick from, I'm going to flicker the lights, to she's throwing her mom on the bed. She's breaking mirrors. People should be paying attention to this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing it had something to do with the fact that her mom was like, oh, this child is the product of me being raped. And then some point while it's being raped, kind of liking it. Maybe she's from the devil and these aren't God powers. But I kind of thought that maybe the mom was not aware until Carrie had become quite powerful. Maybe those powers came along like with her womanhood. Like the period hits and then all of a sudden all this stuff starts to happen. Now, I haven't read the novel. I don't know if anybody wants to write in and let us know, host at shatpod.com. But I think that's what happened is like she starts the bleeding and then the ashtray thing. And then, one thing leads to another and suddenly we're blowing up the entire gym.
So it unlocked her potential.
As it tends to do.
And you know what? Maybe the powers were a result of the sin. And then the sin, it's all tied together, Gene. See, so this is maybe proof that God exists.
It is an unresolved issue in this film, right? Like, is she actually getting her powers from the devil? And it's a temptation, right? Do you resist the temptation to make yourself strong, but all the evil and pain that will come out of that seems very up Stephen King's alley. He loves to give us, lessons. And speaking of powers, I want to talk about Chris, because Chris has some incredible blowjob powers. And the guy she's blowing is Billy, which, by the way, everybody, John Travolta plays Billy. He's in this. Carrie was released a year before Saturday Night Fever. So John Travolta's acting career, basically up until this point, was like Welcome Back, Kotter. He was just a TV guy. This was like early movies, John Travolta. He's a little rough around the edges. He's not perfect in this movie, but he plays Chris's sadistic boyfriend. And that is not where my attention was focused. Like, yes, he is very charming. Yes, he's kind of out of control. I love, again, it's the 70s. You're like drinking a beer and the cops pull up next to you and you're like, oh, and they're just like, whatever. Just kids drinking beer. But there is a scene where Chris just getting frisky with Billy in his car. She's playing with his head games, and she starts going down on him. Okay, fair enough. Who doesn't enjoy a blowjob in the car? But then she's talking. Powers of Satan. Chris is simultaneously sucking dick and saying, I hate Carrie White. Big D, how does this work?
Well, Chris is the mastermind. Chris is very smart. She's manipulative. She has all of the popular kids under her thumb. She is a character who knows what she wants and how she's going to get it. She's smart. She's working him. And when you see Billy isn't that smart. No. And she knows it. She keeps calling him stupid. And he's like, don't call me that. Don't say I'm dumb. And she keeps doubling down. Tell him. And he goes, finally, I know that's what you like about me. So she's got to work her magic. And I think it's some kind of like a dramatic, like fellatio pause to where she's working it. And to get him to do what she wants, she's like, I hate that, Carrie. And he's like, oh, yeah, I hate that, Carrie, too. He'll say whatever he can do to get her to finish. It's her control over him.
Nah, man, she's like the fucking Harry Houdini of blowjobs, though, because the head motion is going, and she says flat out, I hate Carrie White. And he goes, who? That's how it went down. And I discussed it with Sarah. I was like, what do you think of that? She's like, no, that's not what it would sound like at all.
No. But maybe she was like coaxing him, kind of like blowing, like, I hate Carrie. And finally he goes, who? It's because she finally went back to work. Like, it was just teasing him to realize she controlled the relationship.
That head was moving like she was at a fucking Megadeth concert, dude.
It did. Yeah, I know. I'm going to try to make excuses, but it looked like the ADR. They tried to smooth out a scene there that wasn't. But yes, there was no way. There would have been, it would have been a lot quieter or more gurgled conversation.
It's just Stephen King's wife. I hate Carrie White. Well, during prom, conspirators switch the ballots to ensure Carrie wins the prom queen title. As Carrie stands on stage with Tommy, Sue realizes Chris and Billy's plan and tries to intervene. Miss Collins thinks Sue is up to no good and throws her out of the prom. Chris and Billy douse Carrie in the pig's blood, and the empty bucket hits Tommy on the head, knocking him out. Carrie thinks everyone is mocking her, believing it was their plan all along. She telekinetically seals the exits and begins killing students and staff. Carrie exits the burning school and seals the doors behind her, trapping staff and classmates. As Carrie walks home, Chris attempts to run her over, but Carrie causes the car to swerve. It rolls and ruptures the gas tank. The explosion kills Chris and Billy.
So, Gene, in this movie, like, everything is telegraphed. You talk there about like fixing the voting. This isn't how you fix an election. You don't collect up all the ballots and then just drop them on the floor and like kick them under the table. That's not going to work. We know what's happening here. You could have done a better job of rigging this election.
I don't think it's supposed to be a secret or realistic. I think the idea for this movie from start to finish is slow motion car crash. Right? We're supposed to see, I mean, it's why we see the bucket. It's why we see the pig's blood. It's why we see the ballots. It's why earlier on Cooter or whatever the fuck his name is like, let me help. I'll start today. I think it all has to do with us watching this happen in slow motion. There's nothing that can stop it. It's like the first Terminator, right? He's just coming slowly but surely. It's Michael Myers. It's Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, I think it's very hand-holding. And if you go back and you think, this is released in 76, maybe you needed to do it because it was a time before horror movies were big box office draws. You have Jaws that came out in 75, right before this. And then the other horror films around this time that were kind of defining the genre. You had The Exorcist in 73. Chainsaw Massacre, 74. Daughters of Darkness in 71. Don't Look Now, 73. So maybe the audiences didn't know what to expect. But there's a lot of hand-holding and a lot of shit that's spoiled. It's telegraphed. And you don't have to be like a podcaster in 2024 to see this shit coming. They did it on the poster. We have there that Rob T talked about the poster. I thought when I went back to look at it, that maybe I was seeing a retro re-release of the poster and this wasn't the original theatrical, because they give away absolutely everything in this film. And maybe you need to do it to get them into the theater. But the poster on the top, it says, if you've got a taste for terror, take Carrie to the prom. Great. So Carrie's going to go to the prom. Then we get a split photo. On the left is Carrie looking beautiful. She's put together. She has a tiara on, so we know she wins. She's got the flowers. She's smiling. She's at the prom. Then the other side, same dress, covered in blood, looking like she wants to make somebody's head explode. We know what's coming. So when they get the pig's blood, we know where it's going to end. I don't understand. Why did they ruin everything and telegraph everything? Either it was lazy or it was necessary, or people were less expecting of something different back in the 70s.
You're right. In the 70s, I would not have wanted to see this poster. It gives away too much. It's like movie trailers that tell you the whole movie. But you have to admit, in hindsight, like I might not have appreciated it in the 70s. I definitely appreciate it now, because that poster, I mean, it's iconic. You look at it, you know exactly the movie. You don't need to have the words on there, and it tells a whole story, right? You look at it, she's like, oh, she wins the prom, but then something goes very wrong, and there's blood everywhere. It basically also set the tone for, like, think about every Riot Girl album cover for like the next 30 years, right? Whether it's like Whole Celebrity Skin, or La Tigra, they all are using this iconography, this style, and it influenced music, it influenced film, it influenced, magazine shoots, all kinds of things. Like, this was so simple, but so huge. I felt like such a stupid child of the 90s when Carrie started hallucinating at the gym and we heard her mom's voice like echoing, "They're all gonna laugh at you." It's like, that's from Carrie? Gene Lyons, born in 80, did not know that. Okay. For 30 fucking years, I thought "They're all gonna laugh at you" was Adam Sandler's debut comedy album. I thought he came up with that. "They're all gonna laugh at you." It just goes back, though, to how much this influenced pop culture. Like, I felt like I had seen this movie before, even though I hadn't, because music videos take cues from this movie, horror movies, Halloween costumes. And I just started thinking, Big D, you mentioned how horror wasn't that big in the 70s. It wasn't that much of a box office draw, but it feels so inventive. Like, horror now is just different spins on the same thing. But these were, you mentioned The Exorcist, Jaws, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Carrie are such different movies, completely different kind of movies, all under that umbrella of horror.
Yeah, but you think, like, the poster, the one thing that ties it all together, it's like salacious. It's like scandalous. You think of Jaws. It opens with the nude girl skinny dipping, being eaten by the shark. Here, the photo, it was almost like it was forbidden. Like, you would see this and you'd be like, you talk to your friends and be like, we got to sneak out and go see this. It was something that it was an event. You had to go out and watch it. And I can see why they had to do it. And all of the films tie together in a lot of ways. But Stephen King, this is his first novel. This is his first big break. And I got to start to question. We're going back and we're going to say, did this change the way that we feel about him? Because we've done a couple of his movies. We've done Stand By Me. We did Cat's Eye. We did The Shining, Maximum Overdrive. We did Christine and a couple other ones. And I don't think that any of them were really scary. None of them were we like terrified. And he's always labeled, whether this was like self-done, that he's like the master of horror. There was like a documentary about his career. I don't think, if we look closer, are his films really scary? Are people like sitting there like holding on to their seats? Are they closing their eyes? I remember watching the first couple Friday the 13th in the theater, like doing this bit, where you put your hand over your eyes, like you're kind of resting, and you try to cover because you were afraid of what was going to happen. His stuff is more like creepy, a little unsettling. Maybe like some weirdo comes into town and opens a store selling trinkets that you want. It's a lot of tension. There's dark side of like human nature, but it's not scary. I don't think we should call him like the king of scares.
No, it's horror for the average American, the way Thomas Kincaid is paintings for the average American, the way Hoobastank is rock for the average American. That's unfair to Hoobastank.
You're dating yourself. Hoobastank?
Okay. Imagine Dragons. How about that?
Okay. That's good. Yes.
But Big D, I think it's more our idea of horror that has changed, right? Because we think of horror as stuff that scares us, right? Edge of your seat, jumping out of your seat, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But horror is stuff that horrifies us, right? Horror, it does mean fear, but it also means disgust. It also means shock. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's horrifying. Like he undergoes a change in the depths of depravity and the acts that he does. But at no point while reading Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I was like, holy shit, I am terrified. What is going to happen next? Is he going to kill? Ooh. And so I think that it's just a different definition of that. But my big thing with Stephen King, I think he's more interested in like teaching everybody a lesson than he is about actually being scary.
Yeah, because of all the films we've done, the one that is scariest is probably The Shining. And you can really give that to Kubrick.
Right.
For the direction and the liberties he took with it, because King famously did not like his adaptation of the film. And I think it's the scariest because the other ones you get are kind of campy and they're always, you're right, trying to teach a lesson. It's a lot of times it's normal people doing terrible things like Kathy Bates in Misery, or you have that. A lot of his stuff focuses on childhood trauma and fear of growing up and becoming an adult, not so much violence, murder. And it's a lot of dark magic and mystery. It's a lot of world building, but nothing that truly scares me. Because at no point in this film did I feel uneasy beyond the child abuse and sticking her under the stairs.
There was a moment that I felt very uneasy, and it was at the prom. If there were an Academy Award for best slow motion, like Carrie would win it. That was a very uncomfortable scene. Normally, Big D, you and I have brought this up so many times in this podcast because we cover the 80s and 90s. It was like the dark age of fucking slow motion. It ruins action scenes where you can actually see the flaws and like what the fuck's going on. It makes sports movies laughable. Invictus, I'm looking at you. Or it simply just makes everything blurry, like in combat scenes. This movie helped me understand when slow motion makes a movie better. And it's really credit to De Palma in this because Carrie, she is making her way up to the stage with Tommy. And it's happening in slow motion and you're just dying inside watching this because after all the weeks and weeks of keeping her guard up, why are you asking me to the prom? You don't really like me. I'm not actually pretty. She dares to believe that life is good. And she's looking her classmates in the face and they're cheering. And she's like, wait, they might actually like me. I might actually be something. And it gives Sissy Spacek room to act with her face. We get to see a lot of her face. We get to see the joy blossoming there. We get to see her eyes light up. And all the while, we know the bucket is there. And then you see Sue and you're like, oh, maybe she's going to help. The slow motion is dragging that out. But then Miss Collins, she's pushing Sue away. And we know it's the wrong move. But you also understand why she would do it. You understand the danger everybody's in because you know Carrie's going to snap. You've seen the movie poster. You know what's coming. And it was like watching a slow timer tick on a bomb and just waiting and waiting and wincing for that bomb to go off.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, as much as we know what's going to happen, I still didn't remember if Tommy was involved, if Tommy knew what he was doing, because he seemed like such a good dude. He seemed caring. He was sensitive. He sat there. He talked to her. He nurtured her. And I kept waiting for the turn where it'd be like he would be one of the people involved. But thankfully, he wasn't. And the slow motion, it is right on the edge. We see the bucket wiggling about 30 times. We see the streamers falling. We see the rope. We see the teacher's reaction. And it works for me because of one thing. They drop out all the audio. If you do the slow motion scenes along with like, You can't do the laughing or all this because it goes on for like 2 minutes. All you hear are the blood drops. You hear the bucket hit Tommy in the head. You hear a couple people laughing like subtly. The combination of the slow motion and what Carrie's experience, it felt like watching the beach landing in Saving Private Ryan, where the captain, you see him shell-shocked. We're experiencing it with Carrie. She's having an out-of-body experience. Who's involved? Who did this? Mom was right. Her world is crashing down. And like you said, Gene, she was this little flower who was daring to believe she could be accepted. And people are good, Mama. He loves me, Mama. No, Mama was right. And that rage when she flips that switch and she boom, looks at the exit, that shit, I'm going to say that was a little terrifying. I mean, beyond uneasy. She flips the switch. She is no longer Carrie, human being. She's some demon from the bowels of hell. And that it deserves to be one of the top 10 scenes in horror films.
You know, for a demon from the bowels of hell, though, she really had some goofy ideas on how to kill people. I was like, a hose? We're going to swing a hose around? Ooh, we're going to shock people with a microphone? Wow. Well, I thought this was going to be like scanners. I thought people's heads were just going to fucking blow up.
Hell yeah.
It was pretty muted.
Hell yeah. She was like an OSHA compliance. If OSHA was going to, it was like a workplace. You know what? Oh, you didn't ground the microphone? Oh, electrocuted staff talking on the mic. Oh, you didn't suppress the fire. You know, that you didn't have a fire suppression system in the gym. Uh-oh. You're going to get a fire. Oh, those doors were chained together. Yeah, it is like a residual effect. I thought that she started the fire organically. No, it was just that phallic fire hose that she got people away from the door. And yeah, it was more accidental than violent.
Yeah, I think you were thinking of Firestarter.
She could pop heads. I was expecting more throwing people around. And what about Tommy? Who's the one the scoreboard falls and like cuts him in half?
It was Miss Collins.
Oh, yes. That was probably like it wasn't properly secured. Yeah. And in her general, like she was tremor, shaking things, things fell. It was more, I think, accidental murder than her out there like creating some vortex of fire. And you could easily explain this as a gym that was not set up properly. You could blame the school district, sue, and people would believe that there was no supernatural interference at all.
Well, after Carrie bathes herself at home, Margaret reveals that Carrie was conceived when her drunken husband Ralph raped her, an act that Margaret shamefully admits she enjoyed. She then stabs Carrie in the back with a kitchen knife. Carrie sends knives flying toward her mother, killing her. She then destroys the house and perishes.
So from the moment we meet the mother, I was uneasy, Gene. I didn't know where she was from. At first, I thought it was Jason Voorhees' mom. Do you remember where she was from, Gene?
No idea.
She was the queen in Return to Oz.
Oh.
The severed head.
Yeah.
Like all of the different faces in those glass booths, and she's putting them on and chasing Dorothy around. This woman is frightening. And even though the other times we've talked about Stephen King is more like, it's uneasy. This is an example where he gets a bit campy and gets a bit strange. Carrie now, there's about 25 minutes left in the film at this point. She's murdered everyone at the gym. She's burned it to the ground. She's walked out of the gym. She did that whole thing where she flipped over Chris and Billy's car. That explodes. I don't know. After you've seen Carrie get up on stage and kill the entire senior class, are you going to try to run her over with your car, Gene? Or are you going to try to get away from her?
I don't think anybody understood that Carrie did all of that.
But would you try to run her over or, hey, let's get far away from here? Let's get far away.
Yeah. I mean, listen, once I've dumped pig blood on somebody at the senior prom, I really got nothing against them after that.
Yes, there was a lot of blood, by the way. A lot of blood. Great shot.
Blowjob time.
Great shot. You knew where it was going to fall. Perfect. Prank goes off. Oh, great, right? Yeah.
Take the W.
Go party. Go do whatever you got to do. Get out of there. Hey, guess what? You're valedictorian now because there's nobody else left. That's great. Go to college. Put that on your resume. But there's this whole rampage. It's tense. And then we get this scene. She goes home. 25 minutes left. I'm like, what the hell are we going to do? Okay. So we've already joked about the googly-eyed, the Bratz version of Jesus. And we get another version of here because we're going to get parallel. She goes upstairs. She bathes again. She's going to clean herself of the blood. She's gone back to thinking what the mother believed, and she's going to try to pray it away again. And then we figure out after this confession about her origins, and I like the way his cheap whiskey smelled on his breath. And I'm like, get away, Carrie, run away. She takes a knife to the back. She stumbles down the stairs. She survives the assassination attempt. And then mom's coming at her. And now she's going to do like the normal telekinetic thing. She's going to pick up knives and start throwing them. First shot is a steak knife. I'm like, great. All right, steak knife to the hand, one hand up. Whew, another knife gets her to the right. I'm like, all right, great. Next one is a carrot skinner. Boom, to the chest. I'm like, carrot, okay, great. Next is one of those like soft, dull knives that you spread like frosting on cupcakes right through the stomach. Next, you get another, she's picking blunt, random utensils and sticking her with it like a piñata through the air. Why not just have, this more comical than having let's have a butcher's block. And she picks out all the knives and starts throwing them. Instead, this looked like a cooking show. What were you doing? And in the end, she's standing there with all of these blunt utensils sticking out of her stomach. And I found myself thinking, how did that go in her? And not so much, oh, the horror, oh, the violence.
She didn't have a Magneto or a Professor X to show her the ropes, bro. She's just learning as she goes.
But do you remember, now I'm thinking there was something with carrots. Because you remember earlier when Carrie's off at the prom and mom is sitting there like lamenting the fact that she disobeyed her, and she takes out the knife and she looks at the carrots, and the carrots are sitting on the counter, and she starts whacking the carrots with the knife. Mom does. So maybe mom had a thing with the carrots, and this was Carrie's way of making mom pay for what she had done.
Well, you know what they say, a carrot has mystery.
Oh, it does. Yes, it really does. Great
Sometime later, Sue, who was the sole survivor of that night, has a nightmare in which she goes to lay flowers on the charred remains of Carrie's home. Upon the remains stands a for sale sign vandalized in black paint with the words, "Carrie White burns in hell." Suddenly, Carrie's bloody arm reaches up from beneath the rubble and grabs Sue, who wakes up screaming as her mother tries to comfort her. So as this movie closed out, Big D, I found myself thinking I wanted Carrie to kill more people. Yeah. As things were going on in the prom, I was like, kill them all, Carrie. Like, just burn them all. I wanted heads exploding. I wanted limbs flying around. Not just her classmates, not just the teachers, not just her mom, fucking everyone. I wanted Carrie to just murder the world. I was so angry with the society around her, the injustice of her existence. I felt Carrie had suffered enough and I wanted some payback. And then I started thinking, fuck, why is Carrie's massacre okay, but school shooters, mass killings, I consider them abhorrent? I mean, most of these kids you hear about when they do a school shooting, they're expressing those same feelings, right? They were bullied, they were alienated, they were troubled at home. Isn't Carrie just the same thing? She just has a different method of killing.
But if there were kids using their demonic powers to burn down gymnasiums every 14 days, you might look at it slightly different. Oh, we got another demonic killing. Yep. They set fire to a play. Oh, they set fire to the senior prom or the football game. It's because we like her. We feel for her. And even though she is clearly taken vengeance a little bit further, we can sympathize that she was created by her mom. And this is something I think that we find a lot now with more of these shooters, is they are a product of their upbringing. The parents usually have some kind of an influence in it. Whether it's just like mom not teaching her about her period, maybe it's the parents not teaching them about the way the world works or about real, actual facts and valid information. We recently had, and hopefully this changes, where some of the parents are held accountable. There was the Michigan shooting, I think in 2021, the father was just sentenced to 10 years in jail because he did not intervene. The judge said, your lack of action makes you as responsible. So maybe in the future, the parents will be held, because you think of these shooters, they don't do it alone. Somebody creates them. And it's hard because Carrie here at the end, even though she's horrible and she's the villain, we're like, yes, we're wanting her. I was right there with you, Gene. I wanted her to make people pay. Yeah, she's got a superpower, but she's likable, so we deal with it, and she's sympathetic. But this was, I think, Stephen King's first like anti-hero. In all of his other films, there's nobody we root for. We're never thinking, hey, yeah, run over those people. We're never thinking Pennywise, yeah, get those kids down in the sewer and let's see if they float. We never on any of his other films. So maybe it was his first where he built a sympathetic character and explained them thoroughly, that later on he left a lot of stuff ambiguous. But it's the first character that breaks through, and you're really at the end.
All right. Well, now's the time of the podcast we give our Shat score for Carrie. The Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's when she says your poem is beautiful. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a movie. It's when your mom can see your dirty pillows. I'll go first. I think this is an excellent film. I think it's my favorite Stephen King film that we've done so far. I did miss you going pew every few seconds, but I got to see some great boobs, so it worked out. Everything after killing mom was just kind of weird and dumb. I felt like there was a little dash of like Nightmare on Elm Street with the dream sequence. I felt like the house collapsing. Like I understood why, but it didn't really do anything for me. And you're right. After you have the scene at the gym, you've got to really follow it up with something much, much stronger than what we got. So they didn't quite stick the landing, but everything up until that point I thought was outstanding film. I'm going 1 wipe.
The end with the house getting sucked down.
Yeah.
It seemed very open-ended. It reminded me of the end of Nightmare on Elm Street, where Nancy goes back to the house and she gets sucked through the door. I'm like, what just happened? Are we trying to set up a sequel? As his first successful novel that they turned into a film, a lot of great ideas, but it was a bit rough around the edges. You had the pinnacle of the film, which is one of the top 10 iconic sequences in film history, but yet it's 25 minutes from the end. Close with that. The whole film was shot like there was Vaseline on the lens. There was some 70s like effect they did. The weird music and the sexualization of the kids, it's strange. There was no character development. And Gene, the shot that I overlooked, you talk about the slow motion. We had you remember in Rad where we had the slow motion, the bicycle dancing, where they're doing like spins and the film.
How could I forget?
Here, Nancy and Tommy are dancing and the camera's going around them. I thought I was going to have a seizure. I had to look away because it continues to go on and on and on. So long story short, I think it's 1.5 wipes. It's great potential, memorable. I'm not going to say it doesn't belong in up on the pantheon of Shat and in the rankings of top high school films, because we know just one of the guys is probably on that list too. I think 1.5, but the best Stephen King film we've done so far.
So we're pretty close on our scores between your 1.5 and my 1. That gives us an average wipe score of 1.25 wipes for Stephen King's Carrie.
With a wipe score of 1.25, that now ties this in the 89 spot with 2 other films, 4 Weddings and a Funeral and The Road Warrior. It is slightly worse than Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Better Off Dead and The Karate Kid, and slightly better than RoboCop, Breakfast Club, and Big Trouble in Little China.
Oof. That's esteemed company. I mean, RoboCop is, I think, an absolutely fantastic movie. Also, kind of tells you what our taste in high school movies is. We're something a little more fun, guys. Something a little more fun.
Yeah, but Carrie Gross, she ruined RoboCop. She gave it 3.75 wipes, so it deserved to be better.
One Carrie to another.
Exactly, yes.
All right, Rob, I hope that score works for you, and I'm excited to get to your next film later this week. I do have an email this week from a very caring listener who wrote in and said that I gave the wrong URL when talking about the Walk to Save Animals from the Arizona Animal Welfare League. That's something that Sarah and I are doing in November. And so Temple wrote in and said, I went to AWL.org/Gene Lyons, and it didn't work. I was very, very tired when I put out the last episode, and I said www.awl. It's actually support.awl.org/Gene Lyons. Several listeners figured it out on their own, so I really, really appreciate you guys being so persistent and doing the internet sleuthing. And I wanted to give a shout out to them. First to April R., who wrote, Gene, you've been my favorite since your first show. Keep being you. You make the world a better place. Thank you so much, April, for your contribution. Terry T. also donated to the Walk to Save Animals in memory of Snickers the dog and Phoenix the cat. also loves the podcast. And John C. also donated and said, thank you so much for the hours of dope podcasting buffoonery. For years, your shows have made me smile while I complete my chores at my customary OCD level. There you go, Big D. Fellow OCD chore doer. This is dedicated to my 2 cat friends, Miss Cookie Monster and Miss Pearl Jam, and 2 doggos, Miss Cece and Junie Bear. Oh, I've got a Junie too. So thank you guys so much for your contributions. Again, if you would like to chip in, there's still time to do it. support.aawl.org/Gene Lyons. And please, if you do have a pet, want to do it in memory of a pet or just in honor of your pet, I'd be happy to read those on the podcast as well. Thank you, everybody who chipped in. And all that money goes to Arizona's first no-kill shelter, the Arizona Animal Welfare League, where I volunteer, where Juniper is from, my dog. Was rescued from. And I have personally seen where that money goes. It's for feeding, it's for medical care, it's for transportation of these animals, and every dollar helps. So thanks so much.
That's more proof, Gene, that our listeners are good people. It's impossible to love animals, support animals, and support charities like that and be a bad person. And Gene, one last thing.
Yeah.
You are also my favorite member of the podcast.
Thanks, Big D. Do you want to tell the listeners what you did for animals recently?
Well, yes. As I've mentioned, Marshmallow, our rabbit rescue, which showed up on our lawn a couple months after Easter, where somebody released him to be killed. We have become part of the rabbit rescue community. And I have started to build a feeder, like hay feeder / litter boxes for rabbits. I've also recently constructed a large habitat for a rabbit which has sprawl, which means they can no longer use their back legs. So he has to scoots around. So I built, at many hours of work, and a portable area for him to live and scoots around because he can't walk and lift his head up. And they can bring it to events and fundraise. And I'm currently in the middle of building a larger, looks kind of like a piece of furniture, which encloses inside an area where they can hang out, they can litter box and eat, with the idea that I will start to mass produce these and sell them on Etsy, with a majority of the funds going to the rescue. I will get the link to if you want to donate and support, but I can't believe I'm part of a fucking rabbit rescue community. Animals, they get under your skin and they look at you and they need help, and I want to help. So I'll get that to you for another episode.
Guys, this bunny is so freaking cute. Big D sent me a video and he's like scratching it in his little back leg. It's not enough to walk with, it's not enough to hop with, but it sure shows its appreciation when you just scratch the spots that it can't reach. It's adorable.
Yes, his name is Flounder, obviously, because Flounder can't walk around, and Flounder's wonderful, and he's a survivor. He was the only rabbit out of his litter to survive, and he was the least mobile. So it showed that his spirit, and he deserves to live.
Well, Big D, without further ado, I think we've kept the audience suspense long enough. Rob has commissioned one more film for the Shat The Movies Halloween Spooktacular. Why don't you tell us what's coming up next?
So, Gene, thankfully, there'll be no dark, foreboding power. There will be sheer terror, screaming, murder, knives, and blood. Because after failing to kill stubborn survivor Lori and taking 6 bullets to the chest from former psychiatrist Dr. Sam Loomis, Mike Myers has followed Lori to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, where she's been admitted for Myers' attempt on her life. Commissioned again by Rob T. And this is not a couple minutes of violence, Gene. This is good, pure horror. And this is what I'm talking about. This is Halloween to me. Thank you, Rob.
Donald Pleasance Appreciation Week here at Shat The Movie. My God, what a gift to theater.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Rob, for the Halloween commissions. Thank you to all of our commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat The Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat The Movies. Email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV. Review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever a fine podcast can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next time for the following movie. Have a safe and happy Halloween.
I shot him 6 times. I shot him in the heart. This man, he's not human.
Universal Pictures presents Halloween 2, More of the Night He Came Home.
Who is it?
There was nothing within him, neither conscience nor reason, that wasn't even remotely human. This is some kind of a joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight. You don't know what death is.
Janet, go tell Mr. Garrett we're having trouble with the phones.
There is no place to hide. He will always find you.
What's this? It's a Celtic word. It means the Lord of the Dead.
Mr. Garrett?
Halloween 2, More of the Night He Came Home.